And welcome back to Couples Therapy Sports Edition. Hope everybody had a wonderful holiday, had a lot of good food, got to open some gifts and spend some time with family. As you guys know from the first episode, I am one of the co hosts, Zach,
I'm Tina.
and we are here to talk some sports with you guys, kind of share some different opinions, really get into some different hot topics about the sports world and what's going on right now. So, without further ado, we'll just jump into it. I think, when we look at football as a whole right now, it's really easy just to look at the game that just finished with the Bills and the Eagles.
Yeah.
I
Yikes.
mean, pouring down rain, sleet falling onto the ground, just a defensive slugfest is really what it was. But it came down to the last drive, which I didn't expect. Eagles were up 13-0 at halftime. The Bills fought back. They kept themselves in the game. Obviously, it's going to be controversial that they went for two to try to win the game at the end, but I get it. Don't want to go to overtime and, force something bigger with the Eagles. So, hell of a game. I had fun watching it. It was a battle back and forth, but I'm still not changing my mind about the Bills or the Eagles in the playoffs.
Yeah. So last week, Zach said that it was going to piss some people off, but he thinks that the Bills are a first round exit. And honestly, I thought and I went for Josh Allen and I said, no, he's going to do some like really good stuff. He's going to make some magic happen. And they played at home today and they couldn't even get it together. And I know the weather was rainy and sleety and cold, but they're used to playing in that weather and they Josh Allen looked so unorganized. I know that like they came back last week. They were down like 20, 21 or 24 points and they came back with the Patriots and they won. But that's not sustainable for the Bills. They literally did not look put together at all. Josh Allen had two touchdowns himself the entire game, and they scored both of those in the fourth quarter. The last touchdown was literally within like 8 seconds left. And then they went for two, and he kind of went two left. Tom Brady on the call said he's going to find his tight end. He's going to find Dawson Knox, and he did. And then Dawson Knox was short, unfortunately. So I was like, they're going to tush push it. And they did. But Tom Brady on the call was like, Big Booty Allen. Both looked at each other like, Big Booty Allen? Okay. Um, and then unfortunately, they went for two to make it a 14-13 game. And Josh Allen went a little too left and did not complete the pass. So now with the Bills loss and the Eagles win, the Patriots win the AFC East, which is exciting. As a Patriots fan, that hasn't happened since 2019, since Brady was there. So that's really cool. Um, but tough loss today. It was a really fun game to watch. They were slipping and sliding all over the field. Um, but it was like a winter slip and slide, just no snow. So it was like
It looked like
sledding.
fun.
Yeah, it looked like fun. I mean, Dawson Knox, like his butt just like literally he just slipped and slided into his bench area.
I almost
But
wish he was mic'd up so you can hear him say, "Wee."
I know.
That's what
Yeah,
I
that
would
would
have
have been
said in
fun.
that moment.
That would have been fun.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, when you're Tom Brady, though, calling someone Big Booty Allen, when you've got 7 Super Bowl rings, you can kind of get away with anything on
You
TV.
probably could.
Without swearing or saying something derogatory, you can pretty much get away with anything. So
Yeah.
we'll give it to him.
Yeah, I'll give it to him.
But as we recap again, hope everybody had a great Christmas. There's a lot of football to cover. 3 games on Christmas.
3 boring games.
3 snooze fests of games,
God, they were
especially from
awful.
my Lions. Officially eliminated from the
We'll get
playoffs.
there.
We will get there, and I promise I won't go off on a tangent, which I
You
easily
probably
could,
will.
and I probably will, but I promise I'm going to try my best not to do that. So we'll get into the Cowboys and the Commanders, the first game of the day, the 1 o'clock game. Not a lot of people paying attention to that one. Both teams are out of the playoffs. You've got a third string journeyman quarterback, Josh Johnson, playing, I think, on his 15th team. He's just been all over the place.
Poor thing.
He's basically the epitome of the "I've Been Everywhere" man song.
I've been
Um,
everywhere,
yeah,
man.
exactly. So he held his own. He did what he could against an explosive Dallas offense, but Dallas was just too much in the end. Ended up getting the win, but a lot of things to like in that game. I know there was a couple of things that you liked in that game from the the Commanders, especially.
Yeah, I mean, Bill, who's Krosky Merritt, I just honestly, if you really look at him and you look up like little Bill, the comparison is like there. He had two touchdowns, 105 yards. He is a rookie, and I know that this was probably not the season he was expecting. He was probably expecting a healthier quarterback situation with Jaden Daniels. So I'm really hoping that next year, when Daniels is healthy, fingers crossed, that they can have a better season together. I think that that duo together would be really explosive on the field because, as I mentioned last week, the Commanders don't really even know what's going on with their offense. They don't know what is going on with McLaurin or Debo or whoever else is on that team. It's very confusing. So I'm really hoping that next year, Krosky Merritt, aka Bill, and Jaden Daniels can have a really strong season together. But I mean, Dak did kind of well. He completed 19 for 37. He had over 300 yards and two touchdowns, no pickles. For the record, I call a pick slash interception a pickle. I have for a long time. It's just our thing. You're going to hear pickle. That's what that means. So the only thing that I think, like last week, that we said is I didn't like the fact that there were three games playing on Christmas Day. I think that Christmas is a time to be with family, but also, like Zach said, don't pick very similar teams that played on Thanksgiving already. I know that when they set the schedule, they don't know how the season's going to go for any of these teams. If you're a Cowboys fan, you can pretty much guarantee how the season's going to go. Sorry to Cowboys fans, but it's true.
This year's our year.
Said every Cowboys fan ever, every year, forever. But in all seriousness, you never know how the season is going to go. And I understand that when they make the schedule, they make it a year ahead of time. So the schedule for next year is already being thought about. But switch it up. Make it more interesting teams or flex the schedules for these teams. Honestly, I know that it might be impossible to do, but at least try because these three games were literally so boring. And especially that Lions game. You want to talk about it? Are you okay? Should we say a prayer?
I will be brief talking about the Lions. I didn't get to watch a lot of it. With us being at a family's house, I didn't really want to be too rude and try to, get away and just sit there and watch football in a dark room, and which is probably where I should have ended up after the game was over and just cried about it.
He did sit in the room after the game was over and sulked for about 5 minutes.
I did.
He did.
I think the problem was the Lions have just felt so defeated all year. You know, I think the I think the Lions had 6 turnovers in that game. Max Brosmer, it was his first career start. He's a undrafted rookie. The Lions, they tried their best on defense. I mean, they got to Brosmer 7 times, but they didn't force any turnovers. And the Lions' offensive line, just the epitome of how bad their offensive line has been this year, really showed on Christmas Day.
And they're healthy.
They're relatively healthy, but the loss of Frank Ragnow this offseason, I think, is really starting to loom large. We got really excited when we heard that he may come back, but basically his hamstring was falling off of the bone. So, and I don't know how you don't catch that in a physical, or how you don't
Yikes.
know that a player is freakishly injured before you
Yeah.
try to bring him out of retirement. We thought we were going to get him back and that was going to stabilize our offensive line, but there was just too much rotating throughout the offensive line this year. There was just never a lot of cohesion. So, we go back to the drawing board. I think if you look at it from a positive perspective, they're going to get a higher pick in the first round. So hopefully they can either address the fact that they don't have another edge rusher to pair with Aiden, or you do the boring but sensible pick and go after a guy that maybe like a Caden Proctor from Alabama. Just as I'm watching a pick six happen on the first play of the game in the San Fran Sunday night game, didn't see that happening right away. But getting back on track, I can't.
That's what's so good about doing a podcast though while watching football is because these live moments can happen. You guys know we record these on Sunday nights while we're watching football after our daughter goes to bed. And right now it's the Bears versus the 49ers, and there was literally a pickle, and then they ran it in for a touchdown. And that is so exciting because in the first episode, if you watched, you'll literally see that I was watching football. It was the Ravens Patriots game last Sunday, and I'm literally watching the game as he's talking, but I'm also listening because I'm very attentive that way. So it's always fun when these moments happen live. Carry on.
Like I said, I won't go too far off of a tangent with the Lions, but I think a guy like Caden Proctor would be great for their offensive line, especially depending on what Taylor Decker wants to do. He's getting up there in age. I know that he's been pretty banged up for the past couple of years, hasn't been able to stay on the field for a full season in quite some time. So I think getting a guy like him to Caden Proctor to replace him, he's got everything that you want in a left tackle, especially if you're going to stick with Goff. Even if you don't stick with Goff, you want somebody to protect your franchise quarterback's blind side. So we'll see what they do in the offseason. They've got a lot of needs to address, especially if they want to get back to the promised land and they want to look like they have the past 3 seasons. But they've got some work to do, so we'll see where they go from there. And, hopefully they can play with some pride next week against these Bears in Chicago, but I'm not going to hold my breath, and I'm just going to hope for the best in the offseason and wait for football season next year, but I'll continue to watch, the excitement throughout the playoffs in January.
I will say this, and then we'll move on. I have in my notes here. He had less than 200 passing yards, and he had 2 interceptions. And then the Lions secondary allowed 23 points. The score was 23-10. There was one field goal, and Isaac Tesla scored a touchdown for the Lions. And it's like you let a rookie quarterback score 23 points. I know that the Lions secondary is hurt. They're like fifth man up or something like that. But it's just really sad to see because for the past couple of years, I think since Dan Campbell has come into the locker room and really kind of bitten some damn kneecaps, right? And gotten his team to a really a better place in the last couple of years. It's slightly sad to see the Lions kind of taking a really big dip this season. So in any event, the last game was the Broncos versus Chiefs. There's really not a lot to say about this game. It really wasn't fun to watch either. It was also a snooze fest. Nix didn't really play his best. He had one touchdown and one interception, and he passed for less than two, or he threw for less than 200 yards. Woohoo. I think it was like 182 or something like that. And then the Kansas City rookie, I won't even begin to pronounce his last name because I can't do it. He had 66 yards and one touchdown. 66 yards in the entire game. That is sad. I know that obviously the Chiefs season is over, but there's really not a lot to say about that game. I'll do better for Christmas Day games. If you're going to have teams play on Christmas Day, do better, please.
I think when it comes to the scheduling, I think with how those teams performed last year and they put them on the schedule for Christmas Day, on paper to start the season, it was a great 3 matchups. The Broncos who made the playoffs last year, and the Chiefs who were perennial playoff appearances. The Lions who were the best team in football last year in terms of their record. The Vikings who were right behind them. The Cowboys who can be streaky, and the Commanders who made it to the NFC Championship game last year. Those were all 3 great matchups on paper, but all of those teams outside of Denver underperformed this year.
Yeah.
So what looked like a great matchup coming into the year was very underwhelming and kind of a bore to watch
It
with
was.
with the maybe 20 full minutes out of the 3 games that I watched of any of them. It was just, I watched a lot of the recaps, but we watched mostly the late night game just because we love watching football. We've always got it on if we can, but you didn't miss much if you missed the games. So hopefully you guys got to spend more time with your family than watching those and wasting your time with those games.
Let's move on to games from today. So today is the 28th of December, and my team did really well. Both my teams did really well. The Patriots absolutely stomped the poop out of the Jets. I think the score was 42-10.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to say this. Drake May had 5 touchdowns. And if you had him on your fantasy, good for you. If you started him on your fantasy.
I didn't start him.
Unfortunately,
Matthew Stafford, please save me.
Drake had like 4, well, depending on your league, we have PPR, but I think he had like 42 points. He had 27 points before halftime. And he's sitting over here like, I didn't start Drake May. I didn't start Ramondre Stevenson. So I also kind of like was upset about that because he had 2 touchdowns today in the game. Nevertheless, Patriots are now the AFC East champs, which is exciting, as I mentioned before. But the Bucks, that 1 o'clock game against Miami was pitiful. I'm not sure what is going on with their offense or defense. The defense was basically letting Miami just control the show and running all over them. In any event, in today's game, I think Miami played much better than Tampa. And next week is week 18. It's the last week of football. And we are going to see who's going to be the NFC South champs. Like, champion is really not even a word I can use for anybody in that division because none of them deserved it at all. So it's going to be the Bucks versus the Panthers, and that will determine who wins NFC South. I want to say that the Bucks are going to win, and even if they do, they're not going to make it very far. I think they will all be a first round exit as well.
They'll at
So
least get to host they'll at least get to host a playoff game.
that's fine. They can host it, but they're going to host it at home and then stay home.
Well, there you go. They don't have to go on the road and get their ass kicked, and then they can just go home when they lose.
You're right. You're
So
absolutely right.
it's a beautiful thing.
You're absolutely right. Um,
Impact or lack thereof of them missing DK Metcalf today. With
yes.
him on his first game of his 2 game suspension after his interaction with the fan in Detroit last week. Especially if you look at that fourth down play in the fourth quarter with less than 20 seconds left, Rodgers would have loved to have his 6'4" target to try to tie the game
Crazy.
with less than 20 seconds to go and potentially
Yeah.
send it to overtime or win it in regulation. Woulda, coulda, shoulda, but I think that's going to be one of the biggest things to look for in next weekend's game against Baltimore because we'll see if Lamar's ready to play. Even if not, Huntley did just fine.
He did
He was
great.
a great. He didn't do anything too flashy, but he took care of the ball. He was able to move his legs a little bit, extend some plays. He did what he had to do in order to help keep moving the ball, and honestly, just feeding King Henry the football 4 times for a touchdown.
Oh,
So
thank you.
it's one of those things where we'll see what happens next week. It's a great rivalry. The Steelers and the Ravens always play each other tough,
Yeah.
especially when there's a lot more on the line, like there's going to be next weekend. You never would have thought 6 to 8 weeks ago that the Ravens would even be in this position come the last week of the season, especially with
No.
Lamar playing subpar, underperforming. He's been
Being injured.
injured,
Yeah.
and the Steelers were kind of just running away with it, and they kind of just fell apart towards the end, not looking like their original selves from the beginning of the year.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens next week. I think it's going to be a fun matchup, potentially flex to the Sunday night. So may even be on TV while we're recording next week's episode. We'll see. I think there's a lot to like in that matchup, but yeah, the loss of DK Metcalf over the next week or so, it's going to be something that people look back on if they end up missing the playoffs and knowing that he wasn't there to help them clinch a playoff spot in the
Yeah.
last 2 weeks.
So my question is though, who do you think is going to win that game? Do you think it's going to be a Steelers blowout, a Ravens blowout? It's going to be like a nail biting game, like they're neck and neck in points. What are you thinking?
I think a lot of it's going to come down to the overall health of TJ Watt. He didn't look overly impressive today, but I know a lot of it's, you got to cut him some slack. I mean, the guy had a punctured lung just a few weeks ago. So he's getting healthy. He's getting his conditioning back in. And I also think the biggest X factor is going to be if Lamar plays or not. You know, you
Yeah.
you saw what Tyler Huntley can do, and it's very easy to just hand the ball off to one of the best running backs of all time, 30 plus times a game. But it's not going to work every time. The Steelers' run defense is very strong.
It's true.
So you don't necessarily want to see what happens if Huntley has to take over the game because he's not used to being in that position. Lamar's more experienced. I know he's going to fight like hell to get back on the field, especially because his team's season is on the line. But I think it's going to come down to the health of Lamar Jackson. He's going
I,
to be the X factor in that game.
I would agree. I mean, Huntley played great yesterday. We watched that game last night, and I put Derrick Henry back in my starting lineup in fantasy because the last time that Tyler Huntley started when Lamar was out for a game, Derrick Henry had phenomenal fantasy points. So he's kind of been wishy washy this year, but I think they had a really good game yesterday. And I think to your point, if Huntley starts a game, he's a lot more confident. But if he is like having to take over after Lamar gets hurt or something like that or needs a break. I don't think he does well. We'll see what happens, but definitely going to be a lot of exciting, fun games, in the coming week. We've got the college football playoff games starting on New Year's Eve, just in a few days. And then we've got the rest of the games happening on New Year's Day. And then we've got a ton of games for the final week of NFL. I can't believe it's almost the end of the football season. This year has flown by.
It definitely flew by, and we've got a lot to look forward to in the final week. It's always more fun when there's more on the line in the last week of the football season rather than just
Yeah.
90% of the league either benching their starters because the playoffs start the following week or guys that are sitting out because what's there to play for. So it's more fun when you get to see a lot of the stars in the last week of the season because there's more on the line.
Yeah, absolutely. So, really, here's the big question of the evening. Are you ready?
Yes.
Are the Texans now the team to beat? Will they make it to the AFC playoff championship game? Could it potentially be Jags versus Texans?
I think it could potentially be the two of them, and that I think that would be a lot of fun because they are division rivals and they always play each other
Mm,
tough. But I think in the AFC, there's no clear cut. I know obviously the Broncos have been good. The Bills have been there the past couple of years. They
mhm.
always make it far. Now Josh Allen doesn't have to go through Mahomes, so maybe this could be their year. They
Or
don't have to
Burrow.
go through Patrick Mahomes or Burrow. I do have to say the Texans though, even though I was still impressed with how the Jaguars won today on the road against a gritty Colts team. But what's impressive to me is that the Jaguars can win even when they aren't impressive. They're not. They
Yes.
didn't go out there and blow the doors off of Indy in their defense. They had to come from behind quite a bit. They had to, it was a back and forth game, kicking field goals towards the end of the game, but their defense finally made a couple of stands and Trevor Lawrence was able to take over at the end, make the plays that he needed to. But even when they were still inefficient, they still found a way to win, and
Yeah.
that's what good teams do. Any good team can still take a bad day and turn it into a win. It's the underperforming teams that they can blow out the bad teams, but when they have an off day, it's really bad for some
As
of
you
those
can
teams.
tell.
As yeah, like when the Lions have an off day, they have a horrible day, and then everybody has a bad day.
What about the Texans?
I I'll say this: defense wins championships. Oldest adage in the book.
Hmm.
Everybody knows it. You look at the '85 Bears with Mike Ditka. They had one of the greatest defenses of all time. Their offense didn't blow anybody out of the water, but their defense was so dominant that it helped them go all the way through and win a title that year. I'm not going to go out and say that these Texans are the '85 Bears. That would be an insult to the Bears. But also that puts a lot of pressure on the Texans right now, but they are playing very '85 Bears esque. At the same time, how long can they carry the Texans offense? Stroud looked pretty good yesterday until he didn't.
Yeah.
He started off the game on fire. Two 40-plus yard bombs to start the game against a really strong Chargers defense. And then he made some bonehead throws. He had plenty of time to throw yesterday. It wasn't like he was getting beat down all game, but he made a couple of questionable throws, and that's one of those things that you can't afford to do in the playoffs. Yesterday felt like a playoff game.
Chargers looked awful.
The Chargers didn't look good. I know Herbert's still having some trouble with his hand, but I think, D'Amico Ryans has been there. He did it with the 49ers in the playoffs as their defensive coordinator.
Mm, yeah.
He knows how to coach, especially from a defensive perspective in big games. But Stroud hasn't really been there enough for me to say, yes, this team is a legitimate Super Bowl threat because I think their offense is holding them back a little bit. But I think, like I said, anything can happen in January in the NFL. And if that defense continues to play the way that they are, the way that they have been all year, that team's going to make a lot of noise.
Well, they are the best defense in the NFL. But I guess I didn't think of it. You take the Texans versus the Jags, the Broncos, the Seahawks, the Rams, the Patriots, Bills. At those teams as defense, like I would rank maybe Texans, Seattle defense next. Seattle's got pretty tough defense, and then like
I'd say Philly's right in that mix too. Philly's defense has been good all year.
Well, clearly we just saw that with
Mm-hmm.
the Bills game. I mean, Philly's defense plays tough and hard. They come for blood.
They've
That's how I think.
they've got some dogs on their defense, especially
Yeah,
Cooper DeJean. I mean, that kid can hit.
he
he
can.
he
He
play
really
he plays
can.
big boy football, which you like to see nowadays.
So, I think that we have a lot of interesting games coming up. I love this time of year when there's divisions on the line and who's going to win what, and it comes down to like the literal last second and figuring out who's going to win and who's going to the playoffs and who's getting the first round bye and all that stuff. I'm super excited for this week to come for football. We've got some college football games coming up for playoffs this week. On Wednesday night at 7:30, we have Miami versus Ohio State. It's going to be an interesting game. We talked about that last week. I definitely think that Miami is in for a game of their life. I really hope that it's better than the Miami Texas A&M game. That game was so boring. I think Ohio State is going to rock their socks off. And then on New Year's Day, we've got Indiana and
Alabama,
Alabama, Georgia
and Ole
and
Miss,
Ole Miss, and then Oregon and um,
Texas Tech.
Texas Tech. That's right. So it's going to be an interesting week of football, and we obviously will keep you up to date.
Can I throw in another really hot take before we wrap up everything?
Yeah, I love that.
As a delusional Michigan fan,
This is going to be so good. Okay, go ahead.
because I know that you all have seen the hiring of Kyle Whittingham, which I think is a fantastic hire. I think he kind of, if you're a Michigan fan, you kind of see Harbaugh as he was our John Beeline, Sharon Moore was, Juwan Howard. Could Whittingham be our Dusty May, who has our Michigan basketball team looking like a true national title contender? My hot take is this is dependent on Bryce Underwood staying next year because I think Whittingham has
Mm,
a lot to give to Bryce Underwood, and especially with the pieces that he's going to be bringing with him from a coaching staff perspective. Michigan is not only going to go into Columbus and beat Ohio State, they will compete for a national title because they will be making the playoffs next year and a Big Ten title game appearance. That is my steaming hot take.
that is spicy.
Like if I had water, it would steam off of my arms right now.
You know,
I like a spicy taco.
that that's a good hot take. That's a good hot take. Yeah. We wrap up our video. We wanted to thank you very much for watching, and we hope you have a happy new year because we won't be chatting with you until next weekend. Be sure to please follow us on Facebook and Instagram. I will put our handles in this video, but also please subscribe and like this video on YouTube. Weekly, we will be posting our videos so you can listen to us or watch us and give us your comments and your interests too. But on social media, we're active every day. Can't really give you a day that we're going to be uploading our videos weekly because we do have a small child and we edit our own videos right now. We are doing it all. So please, if you would, like us, follow us, subscribe, tell your friends, tell your family, tell your neighbor, tell someone at the grocery store,
Tell your pets.
tell your pets, tell anybody. We would really appreciate the support. Thank you all for watching.
And like I say every time, because just like actual couples therapy, they're always going to tell you that compromise is extremely important, except on game day.
Have
Good
a good
night.
night. Bye.